Arriving?
Not at this particular second, but I think you're okay, and I'll keep letting them in.
Okay, I'll start with a quick intro. Welcome, everyone. My name is Samantha from Bear Pond Books. I'd like to thank the Kellogg-Hubbard Library for hosting on Zoom tonight, and I'd like to thank you all for coming. We are here with Lizzy Fox to launch her debut poetry book, Red List Blue. Here's where we can all virtually clap. Actually, there is a virtual clap in your reactions button down below. Here's a little clapping that you could do. We do have everyone on mute so that it makes the program easier to hear. If you have questions, excuse me, we will do questions after Lizzy's reading, and you can put them right into the chat box. It's at the bottom, if everybody knows where that is. Now I can't find it, there it is. There's a welcome there now, and people are saying hi. So in addition, a few other housekeeping items. We are recording tonight's program. If you do not wish to be on camera, you may turn your camera off. The recordings will be available at the Kellogg-Hubbard Library website, on the Bear Pond Books website, on social media, and on our e-newsletters. We will have everyone on mute, as I said. Lizzy will start off the evening reading poems, and then we'll do the Q&A, so you can put your questions into the chat box and we will read them off. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lizzy's collection. I don't know if you've all read it yet. It's fabulous. I'll hold up the beautiful book. Red List Blue. It's a wonderful collection of passionate, thoughtful, and hopeful poems. It has what I call just a touch of neuroses in it, which is exactly how I like my poems. Lizzy has a masterful and lyrical way of weaving the outer landscape with the inner landscape. What I see in these poems are the outer landscape of environmental issues, of the natural world, and then I see the inner landscape like depression and anxiety, and a person dealing with love and lost love. And it's just woven together in a way that really makes you understand the deep intricacies of the emotion that one feels both inward and outward. So I recommend this book for everyone. I think they're great poems. I'm sure you may have already supported Lizzy and bought the book on pre-order, but if not, we do have it available at Bear Pond Books, and we have signed copies at Bear Pond Books, which is really great. So I'm going to drop the book link into the chat. Whoops, I can never find the chat. So I can do that a little later. I think it was there before, but it's a great way to support Bear Pond Books, your independent bookstore. It's a great way to support Lizzy the poet. And for those of you who are local, you're welcome to come into the bookstore and get a signed copy. And we do also ship around the United States. So for those of you who are not local, you're welcome to buy on our website. A tiny intro for Lizzy, because I bet everybody here knows her, which is great. We used to have a poetry group together, which I just adored. And I'm really excited that Lizzy now has her book. I came out with my book in 2020, so it was really exciting that our writing group actually worked. Lizzy's poetry has appeared in the Greensboro Review, Hunger Mountain, Santa Ana River Review, and elsewhere. Her first full length is Red List Blue, the beautiful book I held up before. It's by Finishing Line Press. It came out in January. Lizzy holds an MFA in writing from Vermont College of Fine Arts, and she's currently enrolled in the Teacher Apprenticeship Program at Champlain College. She's earning her Vermont teaching license for high school English. And if you follow her on Instagram, you will be treated to adorable pictures of her cat, Rue. I think Rue likes to interrupt Lizzy in a lot of her reading, as many cats do. Please help me welcome poet Lizzy Fox.
Thank you, Sam. It's so good to see all of you here. I'm just soaking in all your beautiful faces. So thanks for joining and spending your Friday night this way. Great. I'm just gonna jump in. I've got a few poems picked out, and I see a lot of familiar faces in here. So some of you have heard me read before. Some of you have started reading the book or read the book already. So if there's a particular poem that you want to hear, just throw it in the chat and kind of keep this casual, as interactive of a space as we can make it in spite of the modality here. And I'm gonna open with what might be the most uplifting poem that I read tonight, maybe. It's all downhill from here. But I wanted to open with this poem because I've been thinking a lot just about how grateful I am for my sweetheart, Steve, who's here tonight as well. And this is a poem about him and for him. It's called Empty Full. The branches, the ground, the frost in your hair all become lattices, ladders of spiral stretched frost, crystals reaching like dancers in tiny white gowns, their arms up. Even my breath climbs. See? It spins up to your mouth when I look at you, framed like everything in the faux fur of my oversized hood. Your body steams. Sweat breaks through your jacket, brightens the peaks of your cheeks. And your grin at the top of this climb, how it thaws my toes and fingers, my nose tucking in close to your nose. Before, winter was only dark, full with shivers. Have you seen how the light bends off the ice these days? The way snow becomes the sun, how empty the trees, always reaching, never in want. Gonna go to the opening poem in the book. Just to make sure lest we think that love cures all, this is how I normally think about winter. It hasn't permanently changed. It's called Hungry Ghost. The wood stove curls its arms around whatever creature sleeps in the ashes. The ashes rise and fall, breath around an ember, a shrunken heart. I imagine a cat or a baby raccoon born of fire, a thin halo of smoke, a snout warmed under a tail. The house is cold. I wish to be still under blankets, wrapping my arms around your chest, even when the dream I slumber with is poor, filled with pale faces and wide mouths flapping like they're chewing all the time. Ghosts with long tickle fingers, parents forgetting their children's names. My alarm sounds like birdsong, whistling with the wind outside. It's a cruel joke. I don't wish for cheer, just coffee. A little time to myself, perhaps warming my hands by the fire. A wood stove is a stubborn god, keeps its ashy babe comforted and small while I sit and stoke and stir and watch. I wonder if you ever fear a chimney fire when we leave the house alone and burning, or awe at the appetite of a wood stove on a cold day. Wood, wood, more wood and paper. I could fill books with my fears and hungers, and it wouldn't do me any good. Alone, I balance small tinder, stuff paper coils and on the hearth's heart, blow kisses until the flame licks like it could warm me as well as you do, until its low chimney howl joins the chorus outside. We want more, and then more of it, you say, as if this were something I could stop. And I should say that line, we want more, and then more of it, comes from a Marie Howe poem called What the Living Do. It's one of my favorite poems. So this next piece is actually one of the title poems. So Red List Blue, the title comes from two of the poems inside the book, and this is one of them. It's just called Blue. And I wrote this poem when I was a student at Vermont College of Fine Arts. I actually wrote it in a workshop. Betsy Scholes, those of you who know her, she gave a really elaborate writing prompt where we had to like put down a color and a memory and like just like a list of like 12 different random items and then use that list in a poem. So, blue. My jeans, the cover of this notebook, pen ink, my water bottle, the ocean, my eyes on sunny days, but not on cloudy ones, my tank top. You'd think my favorite color would be blue, but I like red and purple best, shining jewel tone reds and musty dusk colored purples like the wash on a painting by a man I love that's hanging in a gallery, or it was, last month. At the reception, the painter got drunk. I'm making assumptions. I wasn't there. He took the bus home. He stood while the bus was moving. When the driver stopped, the man I love flew forward and cut his elbow on a sharp piece of metal. He cut his elbow so deep, the bone popped out. He got stitches. He will sue. But I was telling you about things that are blue. The bridesmaid dress for my best friend's wedding. I will wear it even though I'm the officiant. I agonized over the cut, wondered was it appropriate for the officiant to show so much cleavage? She wanted me to write her a poem, but I don't write about the kind of love you want mentioned at weddings. I told her I'd find something someone else had done, something suitable. I told her I'd read it really well out loud. I do that, read things really well out loud. That's why she asked me to be the officiant and her maid of honor, both positions that involve giving speeches. The man I love slurred his speech when he told me about his elbow. His speeches are long, a trait we have in common. Once we went to dinner and he spoke the entire time. He asked me why I never tell him about my life. He's like my grandmother. He cannot keep a secret. She was a painter too, my grandmother. She dyed her hair red and used yellow washes to make the canvas brighter. She talked about the black hole in her brain that ate memories. Later, I learned it was martinis. I'm beginning to notice a pattern. The sky on a sunny day, but not on a cloudy one. Sapphires, except not all of them. Did you know that sapphires come in every color except red? Red sapphires are called rubies. They're the same stone. Perhaps that bit was obvious. I went on a blind date once with a man named Amethyst. When he asked what I was like, my friend told him to wear bright colors and that he ought to bring me flowers. So he taught himself to fold origami lilies and kept one in his pocket until the end of lunch. It was the blue of a robin's egg, which was the color of my grandfather's weeping eyes when the cataracts set in, but maybe a little darker. Grandpa's eyes were ice blue light shining. Never cold, not even when she was drunk and he was angry. He remembered her sketches best. He wanted his ashes buried with hers behind the church, but not all of them. Some of his ashes would be spread instead from a sailboat into the ocean, and inevitably of those, some would lift over the water and be carried upwards over our heads, bone fragments sprinkling down again. Like rice. I have to, I don't know if she's here. I thought I saw her come in, but if Cami Finch is on this call, I have to thank her for the advice she gave me about that ending of that poem. It would not be the poem it is today without her amazing revision talents. So thanks, Cami. Where to go from here? Okay, I think next I want to read this poem, Monarch Meadow, and this is about a field behind the house where I grew up that we named the Monarch Meadow because it always had so many butterflies in it when I was younger. And it doesn't get those monarchs anymore. And when I wrote this poem, it was when we were first kind of getting news about monarch butterflies becoming threatened. And then they seemed to make a rebound for a couple of years. And now just a few days ago, we're starting to see those reports again that they're just not doing well as a species. So those butterflies are on my mind. Monarch Meadow. The round hay bales ran over with baby garter snakes, olive and yellow ribbons that slid over our palms. The lot of us competing to see who could be the most indifferent, who could hold the snakes without flinching. Of course, I didn't win. Sleek striped caterpillars crawled in masses over grass and milkweed. When I was alone, I closed my eyes to dream of growing. Time moved the way a rainbow fades while caterpillars silently measured my limbs and the strands of my hair mapped my neck and ankles. They gave way to monarchs. So many we gave the meadow its name and kept it long after the monarchs left. Back then, the air was so orange and shifting, it may have been a flame. Summer was slipping. A residue hung in the late afternoon, then fell. I left before night came on, but imagine the field filled with fireflies in summer, and in winter, only ghosts. The same ghosts my brother said came into the house at night to shatter bottles and leave holes in the walls. We both left on bedside lamps so as not to endure the dark, and I'd lie awake for hours, listening. In daylight, I could hold the future. I was sure. I did not know the new farm would pick apart the bales and till the milkweed under, that monarchs would starve mid-migration, that they were half ghosts already, fluttering before my eyes. So one of the major themes in this book, as Sam kind of mentioned in her intro, is just grappling with the mass extinction that we're living through. You know, the number of species that are dying right now. And so I'm going to read a few poems kind of in that vein. This one's called Collapse. Tuna fish, fresh mahi-mahi, balsamic reduction, scallops wrapped in bacon. The resort had 7 swimming pools next to the ocean and no reef-safe sunblock. I swam over the reef wearing banana boat and cringing, flapping my heavy flippers, breathing awkwardly through my mouth, wondering, where are the fish? Where are the fish? I hand over my soggy excuses. The family paid. Everyone was going. I'd been so sick. All that trash in the headwaters. And the two of us filling the tub in our hotel room, turning on the jets. There was a jacuzzi just outside. There was a whole ocean. I could talk about something cute. Those miniature dolphins dying, but it's not just the cute ones. See that man over there with a sunburn? I could talk about fires or the goats jumping from rock to rock, how they eat everything in sight until soil slides into the sea, how they were brought here on ships. I could talk about ships, how akin they are to airplanes and all that baloney in the in-flight commercial, how flying brings cultures together. Lawyers and consumers, swordfish on a plate, linguine with lobster sauce. All right, I promise, last heavy one before we get a little more uplifting before the end. But I wanted to make sure to read the other title poem in here. So the Red List, for those of you who don't know it, thanks. So in the chat says that was so heavy and I loved it, which basically sums up my preference in art. So glad we're on the same page. So all right, so the Red List is a really heavy website you can go to where they compile and kind of categorize all of the species that are threatened, endangered, or extinct. And it's a website that different foundations will use to, like the Worldwide Wildlife Federation and organizations like that will kind of use that list to prioritize where they put their energy and funding. And I just got to thinking one day, like, what would it be like to be that web developer, right? Or that graphic designer whose job it is to like update this list. And that's what this poem is about. It's called Updating the Red List. Extinct, extinct in the wild, regionally extinct, critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable, near, threatened. The Red List, a menagerie of unpronounceable Latin, pixelated faces, tree limbs, ferns. I click and drag each picture to its place, count the lost and the losing, guess genus and region by common name before I read the notes. It's easier with my silent game, pretending I can win. I like to open the window while I work, listen to the birds. I tell myself it's not just a funeral song, no elegy, someone will listen. So I read and type and try not to memorize the names, try not to say them with my full voice, ever a whisper. The bird song grows quieter each morning. At the bottom of each page, a button says, show more. All right, that was the last really heavy one, I promise. You guys are all so beautiful. I hope you know that. This poem is called On Power, and it starts with an epigraph by Ursula K. Le Guin. Yes, I see some fans clapping. I love it. Says, as a man's knowledge grows and his power increases, the road he takes grows ever narrower, until at last he does only and wholly what he must. And I think we can all in our minds replace the he with a they and know that that applies to us. Bicep, bone, bloodstream, esophagus, coughing fits, apologies, laughter in the vocal cords and a current of air. A lamp sits on the table. Plug it into the wall. Flip it on, unplug it, reconnect. Be careful. You don't see the current moving, but you know it's there. A circuit. You see a wire, a glimmer of light, a backlit lampshade, a shadow. A friend once gave a shadow puppet show in his living room. The paper cutouts, scissor snip precise and delicate, intricacies intended to chip the light exactly where he wanted it to shine. Eye socket, patterned shirt, in between strands of hair, highlights in the dark. Sometimes we are backlit. Take a heart as example, or shock pads and monitors, or just the sound of a voice. You don't see the current moving, but you know it's there, a connection to tend, to harness, to extend outward. You see the body you were given, its intricacies intended to channel the light exactly. You must, though you'll cast a shadow. You guys are so cute in the chat. Thanks for the love, everyone. So sweet. All right, I'm gonna read just one more unless anybody has requests, which I'm still open to taking. You can toss them in the chat if you have a particular poem you want to hear. But otherwise, since it's Valentine's Day weekend, we'll close on the final poem in the book, which is entitled Valentine's Day. I pluck the last truffle from a heart-shaped box. Caramel sticks to my teeth, sends a sugary shock. I've never married. In the shower, I twist my back to see skin crease at the love handle. I let water run hot down the side of my neck and see the puckers on my buttocks like pock-marked marble. I dance when I walk. I hold each pose as if I were a model. I'm the anticipation of small births, the burst of tulip petals. Geese come north. Soon, arrival. I prepare for divorce from winter, walk aimlessly, find myself beneath the hummingbird mural. Its ruby throat beckons me to climb up and drink. I'm afraid of heights. Living on the ground, I see small things, the child who licks cherry goo from her fingers, the discarded candy wrapper stuck in a wad of snow sure to melt, puddles growing like so many small prayers. Thanks everyone for being here.
So I love, you are really good at reading things out loud. We'll take questions if anybody has, we'll take comments. Anybody has a poem, right? Lizzy said she'll read one. I'm gonna put the book link in here again, just so people have it, because you can get signed copies at Bear Pond Books. I love the Blackberry poem, the one after the, but it's long, so you don't have to read that one. But it's so lyrical. I just wanted to tell you how much I loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that one too. And it's one of my favorites to read, but I often don't read it just because I think it can also be a little bit triggering, and I like to be just sensitive about what I put into a live space. But that one's modeled after Bridget Beacon Kelly's work, and I was really trying to emulate her sound with that one.
We're getting some lovely comments. Here's a question from Jessica. How long have you been writing poetry?
Yeah, a long time, since I was a small kiddo. I think I clearly remember writing my first poem when I was 9 years old. And I never really stopped, though I didn't start writing it seriously, like, and taking it seriously, I would say, until I was in my 20s after college.
I'm going to follow that up and ask if you've ever had teachers or anyone kind of support your poetry or point it out and say maybe that, you know, that's something that you could do because you clearly love it and clearly have a knack for it. Or did you have to find it all on your own? Some people do that.
Yeah. So I remember like the poetry unit in like 3rd grade, and I remember really liking it. And starting to write little things on my own after school. And I wrote this poem sitting in the back of my mother's car when she was driving me home. And I shared it with my mom. I like wrote it in my head, and then we got home and I ran home and I grabbed some scrap paper and I wrote it down and I read it to my mom, and she got excited about it. And she made me read it to my dad, and then they both made me read it to my teacher. And they made me read it to my like after school theater instructor. There was a lot of support in 3rd grade for that poem. And it's funny because I remember running into that teacher, Kathy Shaw, a few years ago. And, chatting with her about, how I think I was maybe in my MFA at that point, and learning that she was actually like more of a math teacher. Like after she was done being a full-time classroom instructor, she went and became a math specialist. And I just think it's so funny that she really pushed me and encouraged my poetry when I was that little, and like writing was not her passion at all as a teacher. But yeah, I never really, apart from that, I guess in high school, I had a couple of teachers definitely who encouraged my writing, but I didn't really study writing until I went back to grad school.
That makes sense. I think that happens for a lot of people. But it's
Yeah.
nice to have people support you when you're young and get you excited about it. So there was a question that came in earlier from Kim. In your poem Barrel, which came first, the theme or the stone itself? And did a stone actually inspire the poem?
Oh, great question. I love that. That one's pretty short. Do people want to hear it before I answer this question for folks who don't know? Okay, all right. I'm gonna read that one because that's one of my favorite ones to read out loud. And I didn't put it on the list tonight because I was like, oh, I've read that one a million times. Everybody's heard it, but I'm seeing some new faces. So this one also has an epigraph from a Kyle G. Dargan poem that says, "A heart is too stubborn to be a stone. Though a stone may be carved in the shape of a heart, polished, painted with an inspirational quote, and sold as a trinket, held in a worried palm. A stone may be a heart, may be worried, may be smoothed by the murmur of hands. You worry me, says one. I'm fine without him, says another. A heart is too stubborn to take a river as it comes. It is accustomed to controlling tides. A heart is a moon circling another heart. A heart does not abide a river. A river wears stones, chips them until the edges are smooth and softened into dust, until they can be carried. My heart, too stubborn to be carried. A stone may join a river, careen toward an ocean. An ocean may tumble cliffs into stone and then into sand, and then wash what was cliff onto a beach where I lazily draw the letters that mark your name, circling them over and over like a whisper, something about loss. Oh God, let my heart be a stone." So that poem actually came from the epigraph. I was in a writing group called the Pomeroy Poets, and they'd given a writing prompt that just I wasn't feeling, and I had this Kyle Dargan book with me, and I just flipped to a random page and grabbed that line and wrote from there. And that's a tool I use a lot when I'm feeling stuck.
That's a really good prompt for people to remember if anyone out there watching wants to try to do that poetry, or if they're stuck, writing their own poetry. I do that all the time. You open something, point to the line, and there you go.
Yeah.
We'll get some other questions. We do have some comments too, but I'm going to get to the questions first just so we have time to get to them all. JC says, since you are contemplating on the state of nature through your work, do you take your inspiration locally or through travel or both? And then if through travel, how are you doing creatively with the shrunken borders of the coronaverse? That's a new one. I hadn't seen that before, but yes.
That's great. Yeah, definitely both. And truthfully, I haven't done a lot of writing, even on it. And I can't really blame it on the pandemic. Like, it's just been a while. It's been a tough and busy couple of years. And I haven't been getting to the page as much as I would like. So whether that's, yeah, I can't blame it on the pandemic though. Yes, again, we all can. But I will say that I do turn to my journal as often as I can, I know that there are a couple of good poems in there that I just need to get to the computer and start shaping. So it hasn't been totally dry. And I think when I write, I turn more towards the local surroundings, and I've been writing more, I think, the internal lately than the external.
That makes sense. And especially wintertime, it's kind of the time we all kind of go inward. Cami has a question. What does it feel like to write a poem? Does it come to you all in one burst, in images, word by word, in pieces? And how do you know when the poem is done? That's a trick question, Cami.
Yeah, Cami, you know it's never done. You know better than that. It depends on the poem. Sometimes it comes out all at once, like Blue came out almost all at once until I showed it to you and realized I needed to work on the ending more, which I'm still very grateful for. But then other poems, usually what will happen is I'll get the beginning and I'll get the end, but I need to go back to them over and over again to fill out the middle, because I don't quite get to the heart of what I'm trying to say until I've revised several times. And I don't know, these are in a book now, so I'm gonna stop futzing with them, but I think that's how I know.
One of her first part of that question was, what does it feel like to write a poem? You can address that.
It feels like prayer. Feels like prayer. Feels very the same as prayer or meditation, I think, for me.
And that's actually in one of your poems. It's the one,
Yeah.
The one in the morning or the writing one, or maybe both.
Yeah, probably both. I think it's in.
I love that.
Mm.
Another comment, Melissa says, kind of reminds me of Mary Ruefle's essay about the color spectrum of sadness. I wove that into my memoir. So I'm not sure if that was a comment on Blue, maybe.
Mm.
These might be comments. I don't know if there are any more questions. I'm just scrolling through. So I can read the comments, but if there are more questions, feel free to put them in. Oh, we did have requests to hear Golden Slides.
Oh, goodness.
Is that a long one?
No, no, that's the poem I wrote when I was 9 that someone is expecting me to remember. I don't know, Mom, do you have it somewhere in like a childhood memento box? You want to go dig that out of my closet for us?
Some more comments about, oh, here's a question. How has your writing changed over time?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's changed a lot. I think I used to write, well, I guess it's changed a lot and also not at all is maybe the better way to put it. When I first started getting really serious about poetry, it was through the Poetry Slam world, which I adore. And I was really writing with the stage in mind, and I wasn't super focused on how things looked on the page. And was very, very kind of almost exclusively focused on theme and sound, which are still the things I care most about. But over the years, I've learned to also bring in how does it look on the page, and played with more shorter forms. And, you know, I think I've just gotten a little more dynamic where I still very much want my poems to play well out loud and to give a good performative experience. That's always going to be a really important thing to me as an artist and a writer. And also, you know, now I know that there are also poems in this book that just don't play well out loud, but they play really well in a book. And I love those too. So I think I've just gotten a little more breadth as a writer, if that makes sense, where I want to do all of it now.
That makes sense to me, and I can certainly hear your slam background because you are so good with sound. Like I mentioned earlier, it's lyrical, and what I mean by that is, they remind me of songs, and
Yeah.
there's, a rhyme scheme that isn't necessarily an obvious rhyme scheme, but and those play out very well when you do slam poems. Um,
Mhm.
I love that you did slam. I used to do slams too, but I don't think we ever did a slam together. Do you?
That's funny. I didn't know that that was in your background. I
Yeah.
love that.
I studied with the with Vermont's slam champion, Jeff Hewitt.
Jeff Hewitt.
Yeah, he's great. He was my undergrad poetry teacher.
Oh, he's awesome.
He is amazing. More comments about people blaming the pandemic for not writing. Journaling is writing, it's collecting. I do love that things that you write in your journal could become poems later. They don't really come out formed like poems, but you're collecting words and you're collecting images, and you can use that later in a poem.
Absolutely.
If I missed any questions, please put them in again because I think I got them all. Jeff is a slam rock star. Yes, Jeff Hewitt he's actually Vermont's reigning slam champion because Vermont stopped having slam competitions at a statewide level. So he holds the title now because nobody has been able to hold another. Maybe we should hold one, Lizzy. We'll see if we can snag his title from him. That'd be funny.
I think if Rajni's still on here, Rajni would give him a run for his money.
This has been wonderful. Do you want to read another? My favorite. I love that the minute to 7 at the last.
Yeah, sure.
And it's nice.
Happy to. A minute to 7, and the light comes up misty, rained upon, still sounding of crickets. All night I woke on and off to their trill and the fear that I'd rise too late to write. The only practice I know to hold with my small and sufficient God. But I came to on time, and as I finish this pre-dawn seance, the garden emerges out the window. The rain falls barely. My cat listens at the door for the scratch of my slippers, my rousing to feed her. I've sat here for more than an hour and am quietly in love with the morning. Whatever terror is in the world today, may we meet it with a gentle rise.
Thank you. I love that. We can go to turning on mics if people want to clap and say hi and things like that. Everybody's saying we could listen to you read all night.
So sweet. And folks, feel free to come off mute too if you have a question and you don't feel like typing it out. And a point of clarity too that I think I should say from the question before about how my poetry has changed, that I don't by any means mean to imply that slam poets don't care how their poems look on the page. That was just me as a younger slam poet that I didn't have that focus. And I think that's really important to note because sometimes there are misconceptions. I heard once a poet say that, the best poets today are the ones who are doing both out loud and on the page really successfully and really well. And I hold to that they hold equal importance in my heart.
Did you ever memorize your poems for slams?
I did, and it was probably the hardest part of it. It was like the thing that I was worst at and why I never competed well. Like I could memorize them, but then once I tried to like get up on stage in a competition format and do it well, I always blew it. The memorization plus the competitive aspects.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, my nerves would get the better of me for sure.
Yeah, you have to perform it. You're on a stage, and so there's like the performative aspect of it too. Definitely nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Yeah, enormous respect for people who excel in that setting. I just think it's a wonderful world
And
of poetry.
mentioned that Jeff is doing a slam. Jeff Hewitt will be doing another poetry slam in March.
Ooh,
So there's a link, and then there's to sign up in March, and then the slam is in April, I think.
cool.
It'll be part of Poem City, which happens for the whole month of April here in Montpelier. You can go to the Kellogg-Hubbard Library website and see all about Poem City. And Lizzy will be reading as part of Poem City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a reading in April with Rowan Buckton and Tomas Morin, a couple of friends from Vermont College of Fine Arts.
JC is on here too. She'll be hosting a couple workshops as well.
Yay.
And Sam will be reading.
So many poets.
Go figure.
Vermont. I think it's a long winter. What else are we gonna do? We're gonna write poems.
Hmm.
Well, this
Wow.
You want to read another one?
Sure, yeah. Let me see here. I'll read, this is just kind of a fun one. And I wrote this one here in Montpelier up on campus by the VCFA fountain, for those of you who know it. It's called Impossibilities. We sit by the fountain, water loud and artificial like rainwater pouring out of a gutter after a storm. Never the storm itself. A young father approaches with his little girl. She wears indigo eyeglasses. Why doesn't the water spill out of the pool, Daddy? He explains about pumps and drainage, a constructed water cycle, a kid's science project made of cement and wrought iron. Her laughter hits the fountain like a handful of pennies thrown against the metal. Magic, she screams. Weren't we just talking about this? Pointing to the grass and to the bench and saying, this is God and this is God and this is impossible. And weren't we just singing that one line of a song on repeat? Every little thing she does is magic, while gesturing to the lawn and to the sky and holding handfuls of earth up in our fists. A dull and quiet bird flies into a low branch above our heads, her profile impossibly long and thin. Look at that bird, I say, struck and wishing I knew more Latin, more names to call the world by. Where? I don't see it. The bird is darkened by the effects of bright sun and tree shadow. Magic, magic, the girl screams, splashing her hand in the water, climbing in and stomping around the pool, which reaches up to her impossibly small thighs. Her father is afraid, perhaps of enthusiasm, of erratic and fervent joy, of unclassified objects, of getting wet. It's not magic, he snaps, pulling her from the pool, away. A ladybug crawls towards your hand and I think, luck is another word for magic. You place an index finger on my arm. Absolutely impossible. Sam, I love that your puppy has come to join us.
Yeah, he liked that one. Was that your favorite? This is my puppy, Ziggy. Okay. I put on chapsticks. Now he has to lick it off, of course.
Oh, of course. Yes, that's their job.
I do love that one. And I didn't know it was about the fountain right here at VCFA. So that's even.
Yeah. It was, I had come back and was helping out as an alum and was sitting around with a couple of other alums, and we were just having this like philosophical conversation about the nature of the universe. And there's this little girl who was like all excited about the fountain, and her dad was just so insistent. Like he just wanted to tear her sense of magic in the world away, and it made me so sad.
I know, it makes me so sad. That I was like almost crying. I mean, because if kids can't be magic, then
I mean, she was like 2. Like, let her think it's magic. Come on.
I know. My Saskia is 4 now, and at her preschool today, all the teachers asked them, "What does love feel like?" And it's so cute because they have a question every day, and they ask them what things are. And her answer was, of course, "It feels like having rainbow unicorns." And I was like, "Yep." And we're not going to tell her, "No, there's no such thing as rainbow unicorn," because that's
Right.
that's her magic, and she should have that. And I hope we should all go up and jump in the fountain. I mean, I still do that, because it is magic, and I love that poets are there to notice these things and to write them down. And I love, oh my god, the ladybug. I love the details in that poem. The ending is just, it's really good. Thank you. Science is magic, they say too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One question about favorite authors. Are they all poets, or do you draw inspiration from prose as well?
Oh yeah, I love prose. I'm a big sci-fi and fantasy nerd. Like I read poetry for my like soul, I think. Like it enriches me, but it's a lot of effort in some ways. And when I want to just like relax and escape into a book, it's sci-fi or fantasy all the way. And yes, N.K. Jemisin's The City We Became, and pretty much anything by N.K. Jemisin. She's amazing. I just love her so much. As far as poets go, favorite authors, Pablo Neruda was my like first poetry love, and so will always be up there. I love Ada Limon, Tomas Morin, who's also a dear friend, but he's just, one of my favorite poets. Naomi Shihab Nye. Those are the ones that come top of mind. Yeah.
Nice. I love the science fiction stuff. Kim, who's here, runs the sci-fi book club over at Bear Pond Books. With her about some good reads.
I was just about to type, yes, you should join us. We've been meeting every month. If it wasn't for that book club during the pandemic, I'd be a little more cuckoo than I am. And we read the short story of N.K. Jemisin's The City We Became. So I'm looking forward to reading the whole book of it because, yeah.
Oh, it's good. It's very good.
Good stuff.
Somebody asked about joining. I can grab the link from the Bear Pond book, but it might be nice to do if there are any questions for Lizzy, or if people want to unmute and we can give you a round of applause because it was such a lovely
There we
book.
go.
I'm going to ask Michelle to do the unmuting because I'm so bad at that.
I don't know if I can do everyone.
Oh no.
No, I just did it.
Yay.
Oh.
Yay. Yay. Thanks everybody. This has been so fun, and it's just lovely to see you all here together. So again, thank you for spending your Friday night this way. I love you all, and yeah, happy weekend.